Folks, on the Prereal podcast this week, we have Ricky Carruth. It was an absolute pleasure to have Ricky on. A great, honest, candid conversation about his career from, zero to millionaire, back to zero to millionaire again, and now has put an incredible brand together. $1 billion a year in sales they're doing out of the agency side, 7 figures a year on the coaching side. This guy really understands the markets deeply and profoundly. Tremendous amounts of information. Ricky Carruth on the podcast this week. This is a really great episode, folks. Lots of value.
Are you ready to bring your real estate game to the next level? My name is James Prendamano. I'm the CEO and founder of Prereal. And over the past 25 years, I've closed over $1 billion in transactional real estate. Each week, I'm meeting with outstanding investors, high-performing individuals, and visionaries operating in the real estate space. These are the people that are actually out there in the real estate game right now getting it done. This podcast aims at bringing anyone's game to the next level. This is the Prereal Podcast.
Welcome to the Prereal Podcast. So, folks, I like to bring value. I'm a pretty straightforward deal maker. I love to connect with real folks. We've got Ricky Carruth today. It is an absolute treat to be able to have Ricky on the show. Talk about someone that's actually doing it, has done it, and is doing it at the highest level year after year after year. He brings an incredible level of intention and focus to real estate, but he didn't hit it out of the park straight away, folks. He's a real guy with a real story. With that, Ricky, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh man, my pleasure, bro. Let's bring some value today.
Let's do it, baby. The world is going through another one of its turns, it feels like, and I know there's a lot of folks out there on the investment side and on the agent side that are looking for a footing, trying to get a handle on what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's super important for people to understand this is a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
People get lost in that, right? This is a cycle.
Yeah.
And you're going to have ups and downs. And for a guy that has had just off the charts success, 8 years in a row, I think you were the top agent in the state. You've built a massive coaching business now. You have a significant investment portfolio. To me, your number one accomplishment, you travel with your wife and your kid everywhere you go. Like, what a blessing. Like, you're nailing it, but it wasn't always like that, right? And I figured if you could talk to the audience a little bit about your beginning and your kind of hiccup along the way, because a lot of us have experienced that, and it's real.
Well, I mean, it goes like this. It's there's normally a really big cycle every 10 years or so. The last one was kind of a long one. It really lasted, like, real estate started coming down in about 2005 and didn't really bottom out till about 2011 or 12 or so, and start kind of rebounding as far as price goes. Transactions still were pretty high, 2006 and 7, and then they really crashed in 2008. So what year do you actually say this was the crash? I guess 2008. That was the worst year of transactions. So if you go by that, it's been a good 15 years this time. And really, if you count, let's see, this will probably be go down as the crash year for this, 10-year cycle, which is actually 15 years from 2008. So you don't really know exactly when these really big crashes are going to happen, but they're going to happen. And a lot of people are worried about, like, prices, like where prices are going to go and everything. And they feel like for there to be a crash, there has to be a price crash. But, it's just not true. There's tons of recessions and recessionary periods where home prices, did well, actually went up during a lot of them, flattened out during a lot of them, and maybe tweaked down a tad in a couple. 2008 was the only one that really had like a price crash, but we're really in the crash. I mean, we're going to have about as many transactions as 2008 this year. I mean, that's a crash. The reason why prices haven't really followed it, when you look back and people try to compare this to 2008, by the time transactions did hit that 4 million, that, you know, low 4 million range, prices had already come down. Um, Prices had already come down quite a bit, before we had that. And we're still hitting all-time highs. Um, uh, anyway, it's just completely different. But what I'm getting at is that, if you get into the business as an investor or an agent or whatever, and and you're in the middle of, you don't go through, you didn't start during the 10-year cycle. You kind of started after the last one, and you haven't really encountered one of these big shifts in the market, then it kind of catches you off guard. I think everybody has to go through one of those big shifts to realize that they kind of have to structure their business where it doesn't matter if a shift happens or not. You're kind of mentally prepared for it. You kind of know how it's going to go. And even though there's a lot of uncertainty with exactly how it's going to go, you have a good idea. Like this crash, for example, we knew that there was going to be a period where transactions fell, but we really didn't know if prices would follow. It could have been another 2008, or it might have been late 70s, where prices didn't have a significant crash. Back then we had inflation that was comparable to what we saw this year, and then we saw interest rates go to the moon, just like we saw back then. So this very similar to the late 70s. This crash seems to me very similar to the late 70s, early 80s crash, with the way inflation went and mortgage rates went up, and the fact that prices are holding firm. Is the same problem back then. People wouldn't sell their homes because, interest rates doubled and people were sitting on really low rates compared to what they were. I mean, they went up to 19%, and people were sitting on 7 and 8%. They're like, well, I'm not going to sell and then buy something that's a 16, 17% mortgage rate. So it's real similar. There was really low inventory. It's really, really similar. But back to my point, if you've never been involved in one of these shifts, then you're kind of discombobulated during the shift, and you kind of don't know which way is up. Maybe it takes you out of the business completely, which is what happened to me during the 2008 shift. But then after you go through that and you kind of learn your lessons and take your lumps from, experiencing it, then you kind of formulate a new business model, that puts you in a position where it doesn't matter if it crashes or not, and some people kind of, especially in today's world with all the podcasts and, just like this one, for example, maybe somebody listens to this and says, oh, okay, that's, not a big deal. We just have to kind of structure our business. Then they start thinking about and visualizing. You can do it a lot better nowadays because how much information is shared. But back then there wasn't any podcasts, and you just kind of had to go through a lot of experience. There's books you can read and different things like that, but listening to podcasts and things like that, it's a totally different world now. People are far more educated, I would say, in like real life common sensible type situations. But yeah, man, I got it in 2002 and made a bunch of money, mostly as an agent, and I flipped a bunch of houses and got caught when the market crashed, didn't realize it was going to happen, and I thought I was on top of the world. And you kind of have that, missed sense of reality, and then boom, rug got snatched out from under me, and lost it all, really quickly. And that was fine. I went back to roofing houses. I was still in my mid-20s. I was thinking, thank God, because I was going to learn all these lessons in my mid-20s instead of 40s, 50s, and 60s, like some of my buddies who were right next to me doing the same thing. And just kind of like took a couple years, roofed houses, worked on an oil rig, served some tables, got laid off from the oil rig, and kind of forced back into real estate. By then I'd kind of figured out where I went wrong, and started to kind of build my business the right way. And then once you kind of get that down where it's more of a snowball, I was kind of a stick and move, agent. Wasn't really building any relationships. But once you realize it's more of a snowball, you build your business model more on, accumulation of people who know who you are and never forget who you are. And once you do that, nothing can really take you out. Your business can fluctuate through these large cycles, but really then you kind of start to realize you need the cycles, you need the market to retract, um, to really see that massive growth on the backside of a retraction, because it always explodes. And then you kind of set yourself up for the ebbs and flows of the yearly cycles that happen,
Mhm.
and also the 10-year cycles. And that's kind of how you stair step your income. And then these really big market shifts kind of set you up if you realize all this. And too many people are short-term minded, and they're just, like a lot of agents right now, they're thinking about their 2023, and it's like, man, this is such an amazing opportunity to triple your business in 2026 and 2027, because the ripple effects of what you do this year, if you can just keep your head above water right now and watch your database continue to grow, I mean, it's just a no-brainer that your business is going to, triple, 5x, 10x, whatever, over the next 3 to 5 years. And without the market retraction, you wouldn't really see that. I mean, your business will, it can fluctuate down with the market retracting a little bit, it can come down 20%, let's say, but your business can literally triple, quadruple, 5x in a resurgence, in a market resurgence. So you just have to understand this and use it to your ability. And most people like myself have to kind of learn that from experience and go through it before you really understand how to take advantage of the cycles. But if you've never been in a cycle and you feel miscombobulated right now, great, learn your lessons of this one and get ready for the next one. Keep your head above water.
Are you, is your passion now with the speaking engagements, the consulting, investing? Where's your heart now?
It's still with agents. Just trying to help them succeed, reduce that failure rate. I'm just focused on, making great content and trying to get better there. Writing, speaking, all plays into that. Traveling and speaking makes great content. It also, I get to see people in person and let them feel the energy and all that stuff. Writing, books and blogs and emails and just content creation, right? It's an entire media company. Like I'm a one man, I'm a one man media company, pushing out on every platform every day and things of that nature. So through that, I have a lot of affiliated deals, with companies, that I make a lot of money. Um, and so it's great because my passion is to help agents succeed and to reduce that failure rate. And it's cool. Like it's the most beautiful thing in the world when you find something that you're passionate about that you make a ton of money doing. But I kind of realized it pretty early on that, the personal brand was kind of the vehicle, and
Sure.
so just putting everything I can to try to build the brand, um, you know, and just look at opportunities that pop up. Um, I'm buying as many rental properties as I can. I'm buying something every month. I just did this morning a blue tape walkthrough on 2 of 5 new construction homes I'm buying. I've already closed on 3. These 2 are closing in the next couple weeks. I just bought a commercial building. I've got a really older 2-bedroom house that I'm going to buy. It's actually a fix and flip, and I'm just going to buy my partners out on it and keep it because it kind of fits my wheelhouse of my criteria. But I'm like, I'm sitting back and looking at this rental property opportunity, and I'm really kind of in position I can buy one a month or so on average. If I do that for 5 years, I'll have about 100 properties. If they're worth 500 a piece, that's 50 mil. If I take 20 years to pay them all off, they more than double in that 20 years. It's 100 to 200 million worth of properties, free and clear. Lord knows how much rental money per month I'll have coming in. So I feel like that's a surefire way to grow my net worth to 100, 200 mil, you know, kind of on the side, not counting any business ventures or, equity or anything like that over here, just kind of like a surefire way on the side to kind of try to build that. So I'm really focused on that, finding really great properties just in my local market. It doesn't have to be all over the place. I mean, this is my wheelhouse. I grew up here. I know every little inch of this county, so it's easy for me to really look and evaluate properties here. And we're really close to the beach. Like I live about 5 miles from the beach. So like the 5 new constructions are literally like 1 mile that way. So they're building a new school. So yeah, I mean, focusing on the brand, building business on top of the brand, taking the income from the businesses and buying rental properties. That's kind of the layout of my current, game plan.
So I tend to agree, and we're buying everything we can get our hands on out west. We've shifted almost all of the holdings we have out west. There's certain things that we like to keep an eye on, and when State Street and Vanguard and BlackRock are buying up massive percentages of the single family market, and I think there's more money was raised in this last quarter for the build to rent model.
Yeah.
The big funds are raising these build to rent models. You just bought 3 new construction, right?
Yeah.
Than any other market sector. And there's a presidential cycle next year, and there is 40-year mortgages now. That little nugget dropped in a couple of months ago. I believe that when rates drop, and it's not an if, it's
not
when.
an if at all.
Okay.
I mean, inflation went from 9 to 3.
Yeah.
Okay. And it dropped like a rock. So, I mean, it's not a matter of if. We've topped out as far as mortgages go. I mean, unless we see another wave of inflation, which a lot of people think that's going to happen, but unless we see another wave of inflation, I don't see that, because if that starts to get away, like the Fed's not scared to raise interest rates. So, I just feel like they'll raise it until we get a handle on it. But yeah, it's there's no doubt for the moment from the data, there's no way it can go higher. In my opinion.
Yeah.
So I see it dropping from here.
We had pinned it when we did our forecasting 2-3 years ago. We had pinned it for next year is when we'll see rates start to drop. Now
you never know though, right? I mean, a lot of people said that. A lot of people said that, and I was one of them. I looked at the data and I tended to agree that we would be around 5 right now. And this was, 6, 8, 10 months ago. A lot of people said, we'll be down, because what they were doing was they were looking at inflation, and they knew inflation would come down with as aggressive as they've been on raising rates. And people assumed that mortgage rates would follow. But they didn't, right? And there's this spread that between the 10-year treasury and mortgage rates, it's just abnormally high. But they have to base that on the future outlook of what the Feds are going to do. And right now, you don't know what they're going to do. Like, you literally don't know if they're going to hang firm or raise. It's just like in the balance. So that's why rates, I think, are staying higher, because until the Fed actually stays even for a couple months, I don't think we'll see rates really move much. And if we see a cut, then I think we'll see a dramatic drop with mortgage rates, because then they're like, okay, it's heading in a different direction. It's heading in the other direction. So not only can we, come down, but we can also kind of loosen up on this spread between the 10-year treasury and the 30-year fixed. But yeah, no, I'm with you.
Either way, right? We're talking micro for a minute now, but either way, rates are coming down. and the cycle's going to turn over, and
Mhm.
the big
Well, I
smart
mean, even if
money.
it takes like 2 or 3 years, like
Right,
who cares? You know, like
right.
somebody locked in a 7.2 or something on their house and they're Ricky, you know, do you really think rates are going to come down next year? And I was like, I don't know, but even if it takes 2 or 3 years and you refinance it at 5 in 2 or 3 years, who cares? Because the way I'm looking at rental properties right now is if I find something that cash flows now with rates being so high, then that's a huge winner because over time rents will go up. You know, maybe they only go up 2 or 3% instead of, 10, but rents are going to increase. Maybe they'll level out for a second. They went up so fast. Maybe they level out. Maybe they go down just a tad, right? But they're going to level out somewhere where they are, and then they'll continue to go up just a little bit, 2, 3%. That's what I think. And if rent increases and rates decrease, right, over the next 3 years, say rents go up, say 5, 6, 7% over the 3 years, and then rates come down, even a point is a lot of money. I refinance for a point less, which I wouldn't do. I'd wait till it got a little lower to make the refi worth it. But even a point less, so if it's cash flowing now, later you're just going to have a lower payment and higher rent, and that cash flow is just going to get better and better. So not, of course, not every property's cash flowing right now, and you really got to work hard to find the cash flowing properties, but they are out there. And if you put the work in to find them, then they're just true winners. So that's kind of my outlook, is that even if it takes 2 or 3 years, okay, I'm cash flowing until then, and then the cash flow is just going to get better.
Yeah. So I just tweeted about it earlier. You buy value, you don't buy payment. And good Lord, is this an unbelievable time to stack value? When you say you're buying a deal a month plus or minus, can you share with the audience a little bit about what is Ricky looking for as far as either a cash on cash, or let's keep it simple, based on your payment, or what metric is it that says, yeah, that's a deal for me, let's pull the trigger.
Oh no, 10% cash on cash is great for me right now. Um, I'm probably getting 8 to 10% on these new construction homes, just cash on cash. I think one of them is 5 because we put a little bit less down and it wasn't the best house on the road, but the other ones are 8 to 10 cash on cash. And that's just going to get better. Now, what's cool about the new constructions are, and the reason I went that route, because I'd rather buy something, fix it up, and then keep it and refi it and then keep it. But which is what I'm doing on that 2 bedroom. But uh, these new constructions, I'm financing through the builder, so I'm getting 5.9 interest on an investment loan. They pay 5,000 closing costs. There's no maintenance for 5 years. They're really nice homes. They're right across the street from a brand new school that they're building. They're just winners, and the cash flow on those are 700-800 a month cash flow on top of my payment. It's ridiculous. So on 2 of them, I actually I bought a condo for 68 back in 2011. It was worth 200. I sold it, 1031 that into 2 of these homes and put 100 down on both of them. The homes were like 3 to 350 depending on where they were and stuff like that. So cheap, right? So like when I looked at the median home price in my county, it was actually higher than I'm buying these homes for.
Mm.
So I'm just like, man, and they're 4 bedroom, right? And that's what everybody's kind of leaning towards. Really great layouts. Um, there was a duplex that I put under contract for 348. It was a 1 bedroom on one side, 3 bedroom on the other. I was going to make about $3,000 a month on that total. The payment all in was going to be like 2,400. I was excited about that duplex. It was in a great spot in my wheelhouse. I've got other properties close by, and the foundation was was messed up. It was a 60s that had been remodeled, and the foundation was it wasn't on a slab, it was on piers, and it was rotten and stuff. So I had to walk, but man, I love those numbers big time, because I knew that rent would increase, payments would come down over the next 3 years. And I was like, man, that was a winner right there. But I think a lot of people look at rental properties and they think it's going to make me 200 a month, whoop-de-doo. But the thing is number one, it's paying itself off, right? It's going to appreciate, and rents increase. Like one of my best ones, I bought it. It was 100,000 duplex, in 2012 or so, for 100 grand, and it was renting for like 500 or something a month on each side. And the payment was like 530 or something like that. And so one side basically paid the mortgage. And I'm like, this is great. And like,
Yeah.
I tried to sell it to a guy, and he was like, oh, I don't want that or whatever. And I was like, well, I'll buy it. Right. And so I bought it. And since then, like now, I get 1,200 aside. So it's bringing 2,400 a month in. I've paid it down. I owe like 30 on it, and it's worth like 350 now, and I'm like, dude, it's 2,400 a month coming in, worth 350. That little investment back then was killer.
Oh yeah.
Another was a fourplex. My lender tried to talk me out of it. It was 200 grand. It was a real dump. 200 grand was bringing in like 500 per unit. And he was like, what are you doing, man? Why are you buying this? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, what are you going to try to make 50 grand over the next 30 years? And I'm thinking, bro, you don't even know. And now that was just 3 years ago, maybe no, it was like 4 years ago. I think I bought that. It's worth like 500 now. Number one, right? Bought it for 200, put about 120 in. It's worth like 500. But I've got those units up to 1,250 a piece. It's 5 grand a month coming in.
There you
5
go.
G's a month. You know what I mean? It's like, man, that was a killer. And so like a lot of these that aren't real sexy investments, it's like, give it some time, like buy it and give it a little time, take care of the property, raise the rents like you're supposed to. A lot of people don't raise the rents, and then the market for rents there's such a gap between what they're charging and what it's actually worth in the market. And then it's like, well, you can't just raise it up that much. You've got to kind of do it in increments, and you can't get behind on that, and it's also a false sense of security for the tenant, because say you're renting it for 750 and now it's 1,300, and you've been letting them stay there at 750 for like 8 years, and you just never raised it. Well, now if you kick them out, or if they leave, they're going to have a shell shock that they can't find anything under 1,300. They've been paying 750. It's kind of a false sense of security.
I believe that, tertiary markets became secondary became primary. There's a decentralization of the big cities everywhere. There's literal treasure troves in some of these tertiary and secondary markets. And when this next shoe drops and the market takes its next step, I believe that you're not going to see those massive deltas in price drops, and that new paradigm that's been created within a certain reasonable percentage is the new paradigm. And then we go into these 40-year mortgages and a low inventory climate plus dropping rates. And so I love the strategy.
And that's just another fear, is that there's so much demand underlying and there's so little inventory. There's really there's no path to more inventory, right? It's just going to kind of be a gradual thing that happens over a lot of time. And so prices really have nowhere to go but up, unless we get into like some really big rate increases, right? Unless it goes to 8, 9, and 10% mortgage rates. That's kind of like, it's all going to depend on rates, but nobody really sees that happening right now. Nothing in the data shows that mortgage rates are going to go that high. Could they? Sure. Who knows? But the fear is that as rates ease down, this just this beast of inventory hits the market. I mean of demand hits the market,
Yeah.
and prices shoot up. Well, that's like the definition of inflation, you know? I mean, if you've got just people buying houses left and right, more than asking price, and then more than asking price means everybody has more equity. Now they're taking out equity lines of credit, especially the people who are buying at these higher interest rates. They're going to refinance at lower rates and take some equity out if prices are shooting up. Then they're going to have more money to spend. So they're going to be buying more stuff, more goods and services. You know, all this is the definition of inflation, right? Which, you know, we're kind of teetering in this conversation, you know, that we're basically saying in so many words, inflation's going to come back and going to come back.
But at that point in the cycle, it's called the bull market, right? They don't call it inflation. It's
Well,
some of the
it
same
depends on,
principles.
yeah, but the thing is, you know, if it comes back and, you know, it's hanging around 3 or 4, whatever, right? Whatever. But if we see another 2021 type year, which is what I think is going to happen, we've got more demand, in my opinion, more demand right now for people that want to buy homes than we had in 2021. Way more demand.
Yeah.
We've got all these people that want to move but can't because they feel locked into their homes. They want to. You got all these first-time home buyers that we didn't have in 2021, and they're just accumulating. They're just piling up. And when the lever, you know, flips and rates come down a little and all this demand just hits the market, it's going to look similar, in my opinion, to 2021. What's going to happen is the trade up seller, they're going to put their home on the market, but they're also going to buy one and take one off. So it's going to be a net even for active listings. Then the first time home buyer is going to come in with no home to put on the market. They're just going to go and take one off the market, which is going to be a net negative for active listings. So we're going to see this jump in new listings. We're going to see this decrease in active listings, but we're going to see a real spike in overall transactions. So we're going to see active listings drop, new listings spike, and transactions spike.
Yep.
And it's going to be a hell of a year. But the problem is that also, the question is, okay, does that mean inflation? Does that mean inflation, right? And do we go back to a scary inflation number of, I mean, let's face it, if we went from 9 to 2 back to 6, that's scary.
Yeah.
The feds are going to come out and do some stuff. So, you know, we're getting into the weeds here of what might happen, this, that, and the other. And when I say scary, I don't mean scary in a bad way. I just say that we could go through this all over again, which wouldn't be a bad thing. It doesn't matter what happens.
Right.
And I mean,
that's the message.
In that scenario, prices went up. If you're buying properties now, you're a winner.
Yep.
Right. And that means rent's going to be higher too.
Yep.
You know, that's why I'm trying to tell people, buy properties now. You know, don't wait for rates to come down, because that's when prices are going to shoot up.
That's right.
You know,
that's right. So I think, to your point, we could see inflation or talk of inflation sooner in the cycle than we would like to, but I think we would have to account for this last rip here. So much of the inflation was caused in part to these logistics issues and legitimate shortage of goods. And, you know, hopefully they stay away from the COVID talk, and hopefully, you know, we can keep this on the level here and we stay away from the shutdowns, because the damage done there it's tough to quantify. But that's a big part of, I think, why we jumped into such an inflationary cycle this time. If we're giving folks the ability to stretch out the value and take these 40-year mortgages, which, you know, that's a whole, I could talk for 2 hours on that.
Well, the 40-year mortgage thing is just going to be another lever that can be pulled to make prices go higher. I mean, if you're just
100%.
making the payment lower, you know, then people
Yep.
can pay more. And I think what they're trying to do is make things affordable for people who can afford it, and I can appreciate that. But what you're also doing is you're making the people who can already afford it be able to afford more,
Yep. And
right?
yeah, and when you see the big funds I touched on earlier, State Street, Vanguard, BlackRock, there's a number of them scooping up these one family homes like this. It it
I
follow the
mean,
money,
those
man.
guys own about 300,000 homes, right?
Yeah, I,
Collectively.
I think it's more at this point, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, say they own 500,000 homes. You know, I think there's 15 million rental properties in the US. There's over 100 million households. So right now, they don't own a significant amount at all. Um, you know, we see the writing on the wall. Do you think that what do you think the possibility is that the government steps in and says, "Hey, here's a new tax code, here's a new rule, you know, for businesses that own X amount of homes or whatnot that makes it disadvantageous for them to go and do this."
So can you spend a couple of minutes talking about to zero to diamond and your CRM? I know you guys are working on a CRM. Did that drop?
Yeah, so it's in beta right now. We've picked up a bunch of clients and we're just working now to work out all the bugs and make everybody super happy. It's so cool because today you can build businesses and you don't actually have to like build all the back end, you know. Um, it's like, I don't know, not even like 5-10 years ago you had to actually hire like developers and stuff like that, and you don't have to do that anymore to create a product and stuff. So that's what's really cool. But no, Zero to Diamond is still going strong. It was the first completely free real estate coaching program, and we're still going hard. The best place to find everything about it, next trainings, like I'm doing a 3-hour prospecting workshop this Thursday. Of course, this podcast will be out before after that, but um the best place to keep up with all the trainings and scripts and what I'm doing and events, like I'm going to be in Sarasota next week and then Miami late October, Vegas early October. I'm doing 3 a month, just traveling around speaking and stuff. A little less this time of year, but just Instagram, my Instagram account, the link in my bio, that's really kind of takes you everywhere and anywhere you need to go, to get the training, connect with me, whatever.
So again, it's in preparation of this. One of the things I had tweeted the other day was that there are so many experts out there that are charging for the education piece. And if they were really as good as they say they are at that piece, they wouldn't have to charge for it, right? Because we understand the value on the real estate side, and coaching is a separate thing altogether, and providing a service is a separate thing altogether, because we do the same thing, but you're imparting knowledge for free. And it's the only platform I've seen where the actual know-how, it's all there. And if people just take the time to do the work, like you lay it all out, man, it's pretty remarkable.
I think there's something to be said. I see both sides of it. I know a lot of these guys that charge and have these coaching programs and are really super successful. I mean, I know a guy that makes $1 million a month. I know a guy that makes $5 million a month selling courses and stuff. And they're actually great guys. And their thing is they believe so much, and like I get it, that they believe that if somebody's not paying for something, they're just not really going to take it serious.
Yep.
And I've seen the power of that. I've seen the power of that through some of these coaches when they do events. The type of people that show up to these events are serious. And so there's a lot of validity to that, and it just so happens that their philosophy makes them a lot of money.
Coaching's different though, right? Coaching, I think, is a different level. I have a number of coaches. I believe in it wholeheartedly. But the core basic information, I think, is something.
Like I say, there's a lot of different philosophies on it, and I've looked at all of them, and I totally I get all of them. but I have a different business model. My
Yeah.
business model is everybody know who I am, right? And then build businesses on the back of that, you know, try to create the most influence. And like some of these guys that charge for coaching, they have massive influences too, you know. But I wasn't born with the ability to do that for whatever reason. So you kind of have to figure out where you fit in the world. Like I thought for a long time, let me do a course, let me build a company, let me do a different bunch of different things. And it drove me crazy because I'm like, I'm leaving all this money on the table. But then I just realized one day, wait a minute, my place in the world is not to like build the company and run the employees and do all that, but more so to be partners with companies that do that, you know, and use their, and so it's interesting because, my place in the world of influence is being a great partner, being a great affiliate. And it's cool because I get a cut right off the top of revenue and I have zero expenses, zero liability. Well, not zero liability, but very little. I'm not the company. I'm not running the employees. I don't have payroll. I don't have insurance. I don't have any of that stuff. I'm just a guy right here in my house. That's it. I don't have a company full of people. It's
Mhm.
just me. I've got a full-time assistant that mostly runs the real estate sales business, which my dad runs the day-to-day of. She's been with us for a decade, but she more like just runs the like local real estate sales business part of it. Um, and so it's really cool because like I'm literally running this multi-million dollar um business with no employees. But yet I'm partners with these companies that I use their employee. Like there's companies that have salespeople, right? And like they're my salespeople, their customer service, their marketing departments and stuff like that. They treat me just as if I'm their boss, a lot of these companies. But I'm not paying their wages. I'm not training them. I'm not having meetings with them. You know what I mean? I'm just utilizing what the company built. And some people might say, well, you don't get any equity that way. Well, the thing is, some of these companies give me equity, right? For this, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Plus, I take the money that I make and buy assets, building equity. You know what I mean? And I knock off at 5 o'clock. I'm off on the weekends. I travel and do what I want to do. All this money coming in, it's passive. It's just a snowball I continue to build because it's fun. But yeah, I do it a little non-traditional because some people say make your first hire, then build on your team and have your organization and build out a company. And I'm like, nah, I'd rather just chill, make 25% off the top of any top line revenue without any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the reason that I have that option is because I decided to do free coaching and build a brand, and it took me, a good couple years to build it up to a point. And now I've been doing it for 6 years. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, I lost 100,000 for 2 years in a row, that I invested into building the brand.
Sure.
Then I finally made some money, then I made a 500,000, then I made 1 million, and I just kind of keep building it out. So yeah, I understand both sides of it though. Like I used to really hate on the paid coaches. Like I used to just go hard. Um, and I still kind of go hard on a lot of them. Uh, I look at a lot of them, I'm like, that is one of the guys that, I was talking about in the beginning when I used to hate on paid coaches. I'm like, there's one of them right there. But
Yeah.
then I've come to know some of these other guys, and not even in the real estate space, other spaces as well.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? They really have something, but it doesn't change my opinion on like wanting to continue to be a free coach because I mean, did you see what Alex Hermosi just did? Did you
No.
see the book launch? Oh my God. That was just that validated everything that I'm doing. Gary V kind of was the original OG of validating the free coaching thing for me.
Yep.
But now Alex Hormozy has come in and like tripled down on it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not nuts here for
Oh,
what I'm doing.
well, you're certainly not nuts. And I think, you're right. To be fair, it's not a one size fits all. I guess what the stuff that bothers me is when you see more and more and more and more people talking about, you don't own you don't own multifamilies. Buy my course, and I'm going to show you how in 5 steps you're going to. And it's like 5 steps to owning multifamilies. Like,
Yeah.
there's 5,000 things you need to be aware of,
Yeah.
especially if you're going to syndicate and take people's money.
I've
Like,
been looking at multifamily for probably 2 years now, really hard, studying that market and studying the business and syndication and all. And I was pretty set on doing syndications there for a little while. But then like through the smoke, I was like, I can just go buy little properties around here and build a couple $100 million worth just buying little houses around where I live.
yeah.
I'm like, why do I want to go take other people's money? Not to say that I won't ever do it, because I probably will do a few deals where I go out and raise some money. There's no doubt. I just made an offer this morning on 3 acres, right down the road from me. Really great corner piece, but you can build apartments there, and you could probably get 30 or 40, and it would be a great piece. And so if I do that deal, I'll have to go out and raise some money, to do it, and it'll be a great deal for everyone.
No, but that's it. But there's nothing wrong with raising money.
Nothing wrong with it at
Right?
all.
It's when you don't have the experience and you're
Yeah.
trying to pitch this as something that it's not.
Right.
This is not a
Right.
5-step deal, and now you can go run a 300-unit building 7
Yeah.
states away.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that gets under my skin.
I mean,
And
this one that I'm going to build is literally like 2 miles away from my house.
yeah, like, like, you've been doing this for a very long time. You know the game. You obviously have a profound understanding of the market's internal and external factors. It's that stuff that bothers me. I know a lot of people over the years that have gotten hurt putting money into these deals. And I think for the most part, people are well-intended and people get caught up in the hype and in the cycle. But real estate's a tricky game, man. Like, this isn't a joke.
It really can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not buying with a long-term game plan, it's like these duplexes. I bought them with intention to keep them forever. Or like that condo I sold and flip it into 2 D.R. Horton homes. My intention was to keep it forever. But then now here we are, 11 years later or whatever, and I sold it and flipped it into 2 houses. The point I'm making is my game plan was very long term. The plan may change, but as long as your game plan protects you over the long term, then you can do whatever you want to do in the interim. Like if something comes up or, it shoots up in price and you want to sell it and buy some other things or whatever. But for me, I'm like, let me buy stuff with the long term in mind, and then we'll see what happens. It's like these new construction homes. I'm like, well, I'll just keep them forever. But in 5 or 7 years, they may be worth 500, and I want to flip them into 2 other properties somewhere. That's I love 1031s. I mean, you buy and hold for 5 to 7 years. That little 2-bedroom I'm buying, for like 190. It's probably going to be worth like 350, in 8 years. I'm not buying that to keep it forever. I'm buying that. I will keep it forever because rent's going to be crazy good on it. But if it goes up to 350, I can sell it and flip all that money into 2 other properties. Now I'm making appreciation on 2 properties instead of 1.
No doubt. The 1031 exchange, the QOZBs, there's a lot of great ways to defer the tax and be super smart in your approach and scale. Ricky, this has been an absolute pleasure. I really do appreciate the candor, and I've been doing this for a while, and it's seldom you come across someone that has your level of experience and this is just honest and open and willing to kind of free flow chat. And you dropped some amazing bits of information that I'm excited to share with the audience. Folks, if you want to learn more, as Ricky had said, his Instagram is a great place to look, but all of the links will be below. Ricky Carruth, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much for the time today.
Appreciate it, bro.
As ever,
Thanks
always,
for having me.
yeah, man, this was great. Everyone out there, please, as always, stay safe.